very fortunate to have with us today Travis Cheney, who is the leader, the ambassador of Dynamic Directions, and these Ritz events that we put on were possible because of Travis and Dynamic Direction relationship with the Ritz-Carlton. So Travis, we are extremely grateful that you're here with us today. Up on the screen, I wish that beach was where we were all sitting right now, but I know you're going to take us somewhere pretty warm and cozy and fun, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bill, and welcome everyone. Glad to be a part of this. This has been a very great partnership that Dynamic Directions has had with Ritz-Carlton over the last 7 or 8 years with these types of workshops. I know that our own firm has learned a lot from implementing their ways and their culture, and then a part of our job as coaches consultants is help weaving in these learnings and these ways into financial planning practices. I know it's just been very rewarding on both ends for us. So we're glad to be an ambassador and be hopefully a catalyst of change as you take what you learned in the workshop and begin to integrate and migrate those ways into your practice. So today we're going to do a few things. The first thing we're going to do is do some masterminding. I'll go over the rules of that here in a moment. And then I'm going to share some just best practices that we have seen within our advisors as it relates to the implementation and get some dialogue going there. So, and then we'll wrap it up. I know we have a second seminar or webinar in December so that we can check in again, you know, where are we with progress and so forth. So let's start with the masterminding. So this is where you, the people out there in the WebEx room here, have an opportunity to throw out some challenges. And what then we can do as a group is help solve for those challenges. In my experience, when we've had this type of format, a lot of the challenges that we are going to hear from everyone, or at least the ones that get called on today that are willing to throw out a challenge, are going to be probably similar to something you're facing. So let's go over the rules real quick. Basically, I'll ask who wants to do this, and that's the time you unmute yourself and jump in with a challenge. You'll have 1 minute to describe the challenge. And I'm up in here in Boston today, and I was in Boston last week, so one of the things I'm careful of for all the Cheers fans, we don't want the Cliff Clavin version of the challenge. You know, maybe get outside back in, 1988 when I got appointed. We don't need to hear that approach. Just real quickly, here's the challenge that we're facing. And then we'll give 4 minutes to the group. And this group, and by the way, once you give the challenge, your job is just to be quiet and listen. And so then the group, you're going to start giving out your advice. And you're going to do it just by doing that. You're not going to ask questions. You can't ask follow-up questions to learn more about it. Here's the challenge. Just give the advice. And after the 4 minutes are up, then we'll take 1 minute for the person who asked for feedback to basically say this is what we're going to do about it. So I've used this format on many different occasions, whether it's in a WebEx or live. It may be a little different for some of you, but I can assure you that we can get a lot done in this format. So, Bill, I may need your help on this too, so that if anybody doesn't call in, you might be able to help call on some people that you see on the WebEx here, because I can't see the participants. So I'll start off with, do we have a volunteer? Do we have someone who wants to throw out a challenge and ask this group for help?
Don't be shy. So you learned a lot at the Ritz event. We're probably all not in implementation execution mode. We probably came back and said there's a lot of good ideas. You might have tried something or thinking about trying something, but you've come against a roadblock somewhere. That's what this is all about. All right. I'm going to look through the list here.
I'll give one. Bill, this is Matt Doherty.
Hey, Matt, thanks for being first.
Absolutely. So I was just thinking about I just kind of came up with this as you're asking, and I was thinking we've been talking about our Monday meetings as a team, and trying to just like talk to clients more, not just me, but everybody, and just asking like a good open-ended question that gets them kind of talking about what they love or what they do outside of work and family. Like, you know, try to kind of good open-ended questions to ask that get them to try to learn more about the client. So you can start to build an inventory of things that are their interests and so on and so forth, so that when you have the opportunity to recognize them for something like a birthday or an anniversary or something, you know you can look at something that would be special to them to send them. So the first question would be good open-ended questions to ask to get clients to open up, and then two would be actually like maybe kind of an idea to start some kind of an inventory for every client.
Okay, perfect. So he's looking for some questions to learn more about the client's personal interests, as well as maybe how to inventory these. So here we go. We got 4 minutes. This is where you can jump in and just give advice. Go.
So Matt, in the past, when you've tried to do something like this, what other means did you use to collect data?
Okay, Bill, you broke the rule. There's no questions here.
That's right.
You give advice. I'll jump in.
I'll jump in, Travis.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Why don't you ask each of your staff members to participate in this and set a number, a definitive number that they have to reach, 3, 5, 10. You want open-ended questions. Make sure they understand what they are, and then ask them to bring them to the next Monday meeting.
Great one. Who's next? What's some other advice here?
Yeah, Matt, hi, this is Tim Corkum. If there's someone working in a lobby or a front desk at your office, I mean, keeping a scorecard of how many clients have come through the door and how many they've engaged with prior to sitting down at a meeting, just, you know, saying, hey, this is something that we've done in the past, or this is what we've done for other clients that we sent out X, Y, and Z gifts, just to try and draw them into a conversation about if that would be something that's appealing to them, to the clients in front of you. And then the idea of incorporating a scorecard along with that.
Matt, I also, and we can include this, but if you want to look this up, there's the McKay 66. It's 66 questions that Harvey McKay from McKay Envelopes came up with 25, 30 years ago that he has all his team members try to get the answers to. He wouldn't do it all at once. And by the way, I don't think you asked all 66 questions. But what I've seen practices do is look at those questions as a way to get to know their clients and then store that in Contact Manager under Notes, or if you're using electronic files on Box, store that in Notes. So that way you have that type of profile completed, and then so when a special occasion comes up, you can refer back to that answer. And I would piggyback on what Tim said. You may take that same questionnaire survey and have the front office person have your clients fill that out. What other suggestions?
Hi, this is Tracy Edwards. I'm not on the webinar because I'm sitting in a hospital room, but I just wanted to let you know, is it okay to talk?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I work for Jamie Dubois, Steve Daly, and Jim Johnson. Jamie took me to the Ritz. We've already implemented the suggestion of the $25 a week Random Kindness Act, and I just picked up 300 $5 gift cards. I gotta go. I can't talk right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there we go. Any more feedback here for Matt? In about 30 more seconds.
Good afternoon, Darren. We'll let me in over. How's everybody?
Good. What's your suggestion for Matt?
Great. It's holiday time. When they come in the office, I'd like to ask them, do they prefer traveling and Thanksgiving? Do they like to cook? Would they enjoy cooking? Does all the family come over? Do they even celebrate?
Okay, so use the holiday period to ask questions about what they're doing around the holidays to learn about them. Cool. All right, Matt, time's up as far as the feedback. What are some of the things that you heard that you know you can implement?
I'm going to get the McKay 66 list that you talked about, and I'm going to basically go over different questions with my team members, and then Angie, who sits at our front desk, we'll implement a scorecard and have her make sure she's talking to people and kind of just keep track of what things we learn and go from there.
Perfect, Matt. Thank you. By the way, it's a great challenge to throw out. I think that just in listening to you and helping other practices implement, if you're not doing something like what Matt just described, I would highly encourage it. Thank you, Matt. All right, who else has a challenge they want to throw out? Matt broke the ice for us. Who's number 2?
Travis, this is Tim again. I've got one.
Okay, go, Tim.
So I'm sitting in my conference room with one of my team members, Nang, who passed her Series 7 earlier this summer, after 63 this morning. So she is really moving up the ranks, and we are trying to advance her career. She still works at our front desk and is fantastic there, but we're trying to empower her to solve more problems independently. She's the newest member of our firm, but is going to be probably the fastest growing member, and I would love to figure out a process to, consistently empower her to solve issues without having to rely on me or some other members of our team.
Okay, so how do you empower your employees to solve members without you? Is that the challenge?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Audience, let's hear some suggestions for Tim on how he can help empower his fastest growing employee. Go. Anybody have suggestions for Tim?
This is Brenda. My recommendation usually to employees that come to me with issues usually is to come with a solution or some solutions that they kind of makes my job easier to say yes or no. I need to think it more out. But sometimes they have really good suggestions because they're the ones doing the issues.
Well, I love that. So what you're saying is, if your employees are going to come to you with problems, they need to come together with their own solutions so that they're ready to discuss how to implement.
Yeah, that they've thought about it. And, sometimes you have to say no that because they didn't have the full scope, but they've come to you and at least they're starting that process of thinking ahead. The next time they'll get better and better, and that's what I've seen with employees.
Perfect. Excellent suggestion. What else for Tim? Tim, I would also, on your end, write down the things that you feel like she should be empowered to do. In other words, oftentimes we think about delegation in relation to tasks. I would also think in terms of delegation as it relates to decision making. In other words, the things that you want to empower her to make decisions on without you. And then that list could provide some healthy discussions on a weekly or daily basis, depending on how often you want to do training and education with her, so that you could give her a list to come back and, like what that previous suggestion was, how would you do this, as well as exude your kind of premise and why behind maybe things that you'd like to see done, at least in a certain way. But I would I'd help her understand some things that you want her to be empowered by.
To kind of piggyback on what Travis was saying, I would also encourage you to have multiple directions you could point her. Now, you and I both know that can be loaded in a certain way, but sometimes people need to visually see where they're going to fit in to your entire team and your entire vision.
So are you saying there, just to clarify, that she can go to other resources outside of Tim? Is that what you're saying?
Or that she can be developed in any one of 2 or 3 ways.
Got it.
And Tim, all the while, would know that the things that you suggested that he wants her to do are going to really be the definition of her role and responsibilities, no matter how she accepts the definition of that role.
Got it. Excellent. What else for Tim? Okay. Tim, based on what you heard there, what are some things that you feel like you can do?
From the 3 suggestions, I'd like to implement all 3, but I think Brenda's thought was very true. It's certainly the way I was trained of if a novel problem comes about, I had to come to the advisor I was working for previously with a solution alongside it. And, I would frequently say, I think I have the answer, like, present the answer. He goes, is that the answer? I'd say, I don't know, I think so. Go, great, well, come back when you have the answer. It takes a little bit longer, and I'm so task-oriented of solving an issue, but as far as learning goes, really putting it on the shoulders of the person who's going to, hopefully, that will ultimately, that those solutions will ultimately rely on, is going to go a lot farther in the long run.
Yeah, so the old-fashioned trial by fire is what I hear you saying, right?
Yep.
They got to try it, put them in the fire. Okay, thanks, Tim. Great challenge around empowerment. Let's look at one more. Someone else have a challenge they want to throw out to the group.
I'm going to plug in. This is Brian Gerhardt, and I was late joining. I had a conflict, but I've jumped in. So could you put the framework in, what the question and topics are?
Well, actually, so it's whatever your challenge is, so it's open-ended. You have 1 minute to describe the challenge, and then you're going to listen and absorb, kind of like what Tim just did. And then we have up to 4 minutes where the group is just going to jump in and give feedback, give the solutions, and then after that you'll have 1 minute to basically say, okay, based on what I heard, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay, thank you.
So do you have one for us?
I don't feel like I'm facing any challenges. More of the things that I think we're focusing on are going to be the cosmetic sort of things that, from my viewpoint, I think we've got a great client service model. I think we've got a great office setup, but I think from my, as I was sitting in the training session with Eric, my thought was that what I want to do is when people walk in, I want them to have more of a wow experience and more of a we're thinking about them experience, taking care of the, I described it to Eric as instead of acting as if you're going to buy a Honda Accord, imagine that you're going to buy a Mercedes-Benz, and your experience will be different.
Okay, you just issued a challenge, though. I love it. So what he just said, what he wants to work on is how do we make that wow impression? What are some things that we can do so it feels more like the luxury car dealership when they walk into the office? I think that's what I heard you say. Is that right?
That'll work.
Yep, so let's brainstorm now. We got 4 minutes. Let's throw out some ideas on how we can help.
We're already working on a whole list of things, though.
That's
okay. I
okay.
don't feel like I'm at a challenge. But go ahead. I'll play on the team.
There we go. Some other people might have the same challenge. So what are some suggestions on how to create this experience of a first impression? So one of the things that I would do is whoever is up front, I would work with them to make sure from a calendar standpoint they know who's coming in. If possible, provide pictures. If possible, if you track their favorite things to drink or snacks that you keep, or if there's something personal, that way when that person walks to the door, it's like, oh, hey, Bill, glad to see you. You must be here for your 10 o'clock appointment. Travis is excited to see you. I remember that you like coffee with 2 sugars and a cream. Can I get you something? That way, that's just like one example of the information you can accumulate. But people will feel very special if you greet them by name, know who they are, and if there's something that you can recall, basically that you've given to them before, that would be great. The other thing is if you know something about them personally. So Bill's got 2 daughters. You could ask about them. What other suggestions do you have on how to create that wow first impression when you walk in the lobby?
Travis, this is Lori. Actually, we just started something similar to that this week. We call it our daily update, kind of based off of the Ritz-Carlton, their daily meetings that they get together. But we did that with our calendars because we have 4 advisors in our office. So to look at everybody's calendar and see who's coming in. So we have our daily update that has who's coming in for the day. We've added some of those things about, somebody recently celebrated a birthday or a special award, different things that have occurred in their lives that we have notes in our database that we've included on there. Some of that does include what they drink or what they like. We also recently started adding just a basket of just different snacks. We have some granola bars and little snack packs that are out there. The clients seem to really love having that. along with the coffee and tea that we offer. We also recently put out some iPads. It's not typically that our clients are sitting there waiting very long for the advisor to come in to meet with them, but does give them an option, or sometimes they'll bring their children with them, or if it's an older client, they might have a son or daughter that has brought them to the appointment. So if somebody is waiting out there, then they have something they can play a few games on, or check the news or whatever that they have available while they're sitting and waiting.
Great suggestions. What other suggestions on this topic?
I would say the luxury is not all about just when you come in, but the whole process of them being there, the entire time they're being there, all the way up until the time where you don't see them anymore, and maybe even in between the time they're at your office to when they get home, and do they receive something at home that they open their eyes and say, wow, nobody else does that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can expand that and should expand that beyond that. As we're talking about the first impressions, a couple other things. I see a lot of advisors have TVs. I wouldn't have a financial markets on there. I'd have something more that's relaxing. Same thing if you have any type of music. You can set the tone and mood with that. If you especially have multiple advisors in an office, what I've seen people have had very decorative whiteboards, so that when people are coming in, they can already have their name on the board. They could say, Mr. and Miss Cheney, welcome. So when people see that, they have that in there. You were mentioning snacks and food. I wouldn't forget about the sense of smell. So what does your office smell like? Is it inviting? Is it warm when you walk in? The last thing I would say, and I think Jeff harbored on this, I know he did in Boston, was about cleanliness. How often are you coming through and straighten up your lobby room, your lobby area? What magazines are you, little things like, oh my gosh, this magazine's 1 year old. So, keeping those types of things fresh as well. So, anything to add now that we've given you a lot of suggestions there? Do you feel like you got it covered? Or did you hear anything you want to implement?
I can tell you, if this is posed to me, Brian, who offered to be challenged, am I supposed
to? No one offered to challenge you. You brought a challenge to it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're asking for me to respond to you, or if you were looking for somebody else to respond.
Yep. You, Brian.
Yeah. Okay. So I can bore you guys and tell you that I bought $20,000 worth of 2 pieces of artwork end of last year. The artists they arrived and they do not do anything, so I'm having those remade. I had a carpet maker come in and measure the steps so that we do new carpeting in the hallways and stairwells. I have a guy coming in to install cabinetry to my office off my office so that I keep all the cluttery stuff out of the way. I have ordered 7.5-ounce Coca-Cola, Coke Zero, Diet Coke, and Dasani bottled water. I have them up on the mantle on display. Those I'm adding to already having had peanut M&Ms, chocolate M&Ms, and nuts out on display for clients. I went to the Muji store on Mass Ave in Newbury Street and bought an aromator. I don't know what you call it. You put the water in, put the oils in, and it puts a beautiful scent in the air that makes it refreshing. All of that is stuff. Now, the art was the stuff that goes back into last year, but all the other stuff I've basically done since the session at Ritz.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, I appreciate everybody throwing out the challenges like they did and some of the solutions. That's always very helpful. We'll do that next time. So for those of you, obviously this is our first webinar together, think about that. If you've got a challenge. In fact, if you want to make sure I call on you, you can email me before. Otherwise, we'll kind of follow the same format. So I want to move on to some just best practices. Here again, these are things that I've seen happen that as a result of being in the Ritz training. So the first one I'm going to cover is the first day of a new employee. You guys remember Jeff Hargett really covered that. I love that video that they show about to inspire them and how they treat the first day. So some of the things that we've seen people do is they turn it into a celebration, and they do that a couple ways. They offer welcome gifts, and there again, in the spirit of the Harvey K66, if they know something about that new person ahead of time, their personal interest, those gifts tie right into their interests. So they have those ready on the first day. They have their favorite snacks and drinks. There again, I look at that McKay-66 or any type of profile that you have for clients. You should utilize that for your team members so that you know as their leader and as the owner of the firm, what you can do around where they feel special. So have that provided. You may want to throw a breakfast in the office. Then when they first come in, take them out to lunch with the team that day, and instead of going over, really, in our case, let's get you ingrained in Contact Manager or Compass, is really meet with each team member for overviews about, so they learn about what everybody's doing, why they're doing it, how it impacts the client, how it impacts the firm. But not really getting into the weeds, but getting into more of the mission and vision and values. We think that's a good practice. And really, the paperwork, I know especially in our industry, man, all the stuff they have to do just to get on the Ameriprise system, especially if they're licensed. We suggest that you do all that outside their first day, get all that done maybe on their lunch hours or after hours, so that there's really no paperwork. We got a quick video here. This is something we did recently for Megan on our team, and I said, why don't we document that so that everyone can see. So when she walked in, we had the sign with Welcome Megan there. These were things that were on our desk. We had a couple of gifts. We had some key books that are critical for our organization. We just had some, motivated quotes in there. There again, a lot of the things that we've given out to our clients were included on all of that. And of course, those things, all those bullet points that you saw ahead of time. She loves donuts. She's a marathon runner, so God bless her. I'm glad she can eat those donuts. But that was something we did on her first day, and it was interesting because when she went home that night and spoke to her husband Ryan, we asked her, the next day, what did you tell him? And she just glowed because she had never experienced a day like that where she felt so good about the decision that she had made to leave an employer and come to us. So just think about that. Just something different as you look to expand your team. How can you make that person feel special? How can you minimize at least that first day all the monotonous stuff that you have to do to get things going? Some other best practices, recovery gifts. I'm in Boston today meeting with a practice that actually attended the Boston one, so we spent a lot of time talking about this. The reality of it is, and Jeff talked about this from the Ritz end, they're going to make mistakes, we're going to make mistakes, and I think people really want to look at us and judge us more about how we handle the mistakes versus the mistakes. And so I think it's important that you have a recovery gift in place. And the first thing is you got to own the mistakes. Right off the bat, as soon as possible, let them know whether it's you or your team member, and empower your team members to make sure you want them to own their mistakes. And then the second thing is, before we get into creating wow about maybe how to recover with gifts or cards, you got to make sure that you're resolving that mistake for them and staying in contact with the client. Even if you don't have the resolve right off the bat, you may want to say, well, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow, whether I'll have it solved or not. I'll at least communicate with you where we are with that. Clients really appreciate that. Even if it's not solved, you let them know, here's the steps I've taken. I'm waiting to hear back from home office on this issue, or the advisor's looking at everything. He's going to get back to you today at noon. I mean, those type of communications go a long way. As soon as everything is over, I think it's really important to send a handwritten note. There again, apologizing for the mistake, and make that a sincere apology. And then inside that note, depending on the size of the gift, I know we have, or the size of the mistake, I know we have rules. We're going to follow those rules. But if it's something minor, maybe there's a scheduling issue or a data input thing that was easily resolved, maybe you drop a $5 or $10 gift card in there, just saying after you own up to the mistake and apologize and wish them well, so have coffee on me. If it's a larger mistake, I put down a bottle of wine, but I really go back to that Harvey McKay-66 or having that profile get them something a little more customized if it's a larger mistake. And then, of course, the urgency there, do it immediately. So, I think this is something that, there again, you as the franchise owners, it's important you instill this into your team. And as things happen, this happens in my office, a couple times a month, I'll get an email from one of my team members, telling me what happened and how they resolved it, and then what was sent out. So it's important that you document these things that happen, because I would want to know that in my next interaction with my client, something like that happened, and I didn't know that what the mistake was and how it was handled, and they ask me about it, I'm going to be, caught off guard. So when you're doing these types of things, make sure everybody's on the same page on where you store the documentation. And a good practice there too is, when it doesn't matter if someone picks up the phone and it's a client, you want to go to that, wherever you store that, to see if anything's happened so that you're not caught off guard as well. So I think it's really important that you have a recovery program. Any questions on the recovery program? No? Okay. So let's talk about creating wow. I know in Boston there were several people interested in, what are some of the tactical things that you can do to help create wow. One of the things that we found is getting publications framed. So if you're watching out in a local newspaper, a local magazine, or you're tracking a client because they're in a certain association, so you check in with the websites that they belong to as far as maybe their board member or part of that in their industry. And when good news comes out, I think taking that publication, local frame shop, framing it, and then hand delivering that or giving that to them in the next meeting, that's always a great way to create some wow. Can you make sure everybody can mute their line, please?
Excuse me, I have a question. With that, would you need their permission to post it in your office?
I don't know that I would post it in my office.
I thought that's what...
No, I'm sorry. I would give it to them so that they could post it in their office. Yeah, I wouldn't keep it in your office. At the next interaction, or maybe you drop it by their place of work or home on the way home, or from your own work. But yeah, that's what we do. I wouldn't keep it. I'm sorry.
All right. No, thanks for the clarification. Thanks.
Yeah. Gifts for occasions and achievements. This gets back to radar on and antenna up. And I think, what we can learn as advisors, especially if your team members are having interactions, empower them. They might be the one that in the lobby learn that they're going to Italy for, an upcoming trip for a 25th wedding anniversary. You may not know that in your meeting yet, but there again, you let your team member have the ability to send something out based on what they learned for any type of key occasion or achievement. So I think those are important. And there again, people ask me all the time, even today, like, what are some cool gifts? I'm always going to go back to look at the profile. I know it requires work, because you have to see what their interest is, and you got to find out maybe on their interest, what you might want to get them. But those will go a long way when you're sending those types of gifts. This is one thing that we send from a local place called Studios Plant. When a newborn is, they got all kinds of different bits. We have some things picked out there. I'm just giving that as an example. The handwritten notes, I believe those go a long way, especially in today's electronic age. I can tell you when I get a handwritten note, first of all, if my name and address is handwritten on it, I open that before I open anything, especially if it's got some type of label on it. And then I look in and I see that someone's taken the time to write me a note to say thank you, how much they appreciate me or something they did for me. I just know that makes me feel good. And I think, if you just set aside 10 minutes a day, you could probably do 2 or 3 just a day on handwritten notes to help create some wow. Car service at client events, we've seen this where you have a longer event. Maybe it's outside. You might have someone there to wash your cars, detail cars while things are going on. I think that's a cool thing to do. TripAdvisor reviews for hospitality. You find out there again, someone's going to Italy, they're going to South Dakota, they're going wherever. If you follow up with them, perhaps it's TripAdvisor. I've seen people get specific, magazines or websites around promoting that area, and you just send that, a quick note. Say, hey, I heard you're going to, Boston this week. Here's a few of my favorite places, or I got online, and here's some things based on what I know about you that you may want to explore. Those are all great things to do. Got some other things. I have fun with this. Anytime like a client asks me, or if I stay over at someone on my travel, or some local host event, we've taken like a TripAdvisor and we write a quick little review about it, as if we would post that on TripAdvisor. We're not going to do that. We've done this several times. I've seen some of my advisors kind of emulate this as well. And what I noticed is now they frame these and put these, in their homes about their TripAdvisor report. So, those are fun things to do. check in for flights for them. That's I've seen people do that. That's probably harder to do. You have to know when that's going to happen and offer to do that. But we have some of our practices who have true concierges who are staying on top of those things. And then obviously just thank you gifts. If they do anything for you, give you a referral, say something nice on LinkedIn about you, kind of give some like that unsolicited testimonial. Whatever they do, I think it's always important to say thank you with gifts. Here's something that there again, they're into wine. It's just an example. I think what we're going to send out, there again, this is a leather company that you can put whatever you like when you order that as far as the monogram or words. We're going to send out a WOW handbook that we've used that has a lot of ideas, so you can do that. Guide for trips, sympathy gifts. That's always a touchy subject when you learn a client has lost a loved one. We found a company that we like to give chimes, so they can hang them up, and then you can put the message down below as far as, any way you want to do that, encouraging message, put the past one's, name on there, and put, maybe the year they were born, the year they passed away. But I know that a lot of our clients that we've done that they really like that idea, they've hung it up, it's a nice reminder every time they hear the chime, they think of something, about the person they lost, as well as thinking of us. Great picture frames, disaster relief gift cards. That's something that we've seen do. I use disaster relief because of what recently just happened with like the hurricane in the Florida Panhandle. But one of the things I think that's nice to do is instead of sending a gift, you might find out there again, your client, their favorite charity, is supporting, CASA, or maybe it's the United Way, or they're on the board of the YMCA. Is send in, a small donation, $20, $25 on their behalf. And then what that organization typically does is they'll send a letter to your client saying that, Bill Kupak, he just sent in a $25 donation on your behalf. I know a lot of clients that receive that type, they like that. In fact, I've had several people tell me that I'd much rather have you just make a donation than give me a gift. So that's very meaningful. Gifts for surgery recovery, probably the funniest gift I've ever seen there, and you'll just have to let this soak in, is someone had surgery and they sent some frozen peas. Donations to favorite charities, just covered that. Encouragement gifts. We're obviously a self-help company here, so but I think this is the same thing for you all. If you find a quote, an interesting way that you might be able to send it, I think this is a trait to put your keys in. So there again, just having your radar on and looking for cool things that you could send out that that would create some wow. I'm curious, anybody out there got any other cool gifts and ideas on how they're creating wow they want to share?
I just wanted to share that I did appreciate the peas, Travis. Thank you.
What are you all doing out there to recognize, reward, random acts of kindness, sympathy? I mean, Travis gave you all just a ton of, what I would call triggering events. What are some of you doing out there that you're sending the clients that might be different and unique? There's no wrong answers in this group. We're just looking for good ideas.
This is Brian, and I say that I'm using a website called Artifact Uprising to take photographs that I have taken or photographs that friends have taken. And I end up getting sets of cards, 20, 30, 40 cards with an attractive photograph that's then personalized. And I'm sort of thinking, while you guys are talking, and I write thank you notes like crazy, handwritten, hand-labeled, all of that stuff. And what I find is that so many people are so unaccustomed, as you were talking about how special it is, most people find it surprising to get something beyond just a text. Even getting any version of a thank you is surprising to a lot of people. So I wonder if the idea might be to invite a client to, because I've done this for friends, I've said, show me a picture that you have, one of your favorite pictures. I did it for my nephew and his wife while they were visiting this past weekend. Show me a picture of your dog. Well, I cropped the photos and I made them into a set of 20 note cards with 2 different pictures of their dog that shipped yesterday, and they'll be here in a couple days, and then I'll ship them off as a gift. Why wouldn't I do that to clients?
That's a great question. I think that's an awesome thing. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the connections we have with our clients on social media and the photos they just put up. So like one of my wife's cousins just got married. We couldn't be there. We sent a gift, but that would be a great thing to do because the mother of the bride had so many quality pictures on there that we could do that with. So I think that's a great idea.
To piggyback on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that on a different brand of card, custom made by the brand of ink.com, inkcards.com or something like that. I send in, create the card. It says thanks written on the top of it. I put my image in there. I can't get less than 10, so I end up using 1, but I end up personalizing by saying thanks with a picture of a selfie with the person and myself. When I've done these marathons around the world, I take a selfie picture with the tour guide, and then I send my thank you. And I know with the tour company that literally the cards that I send with their pictures, with our pictures on them, end up being put up in their cubicles. So why wouldn't I do that with my clients?
Yeah, cool. Any other ideas before we close this down?
Just real quick, out of the Cleveland session was a similar site that somebody said they used that we were going to implement called Send Out Cards. You could, to your point, Travis, kind of pull pictures off social media or different places and then send cards with their picture on it right to the client.
Okay, cool.
Hey,
Bill, you going to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the newer ideas I heard from an advisor recently, which I thought was pretty awesome, for clients that are celebrating some big wedding anniversaries, like 10 year, 15, 20, 25, and obviously older, more years than that. One of the things that they find out just through conversation is where did they get married? And so if the church or the synagogue or wherever is local, they've just simply gone and taken like a black and white photo, printed it at Walgreens or an 8x10, bought a nice frame, and gave it to them as a wedding present, just as remember where they got married. I thought that was a pretty cool personal idea.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of stuff out there. I think, there again, it goes back to radar on, antenna up. You as advisors and your client interactions, what are you hearing? And then picking up something and having a system in place where it's usually not you, the advisor, but someone else on your team who can execute on these things. So that way it becomes consistent and so forth that, these things don't fall through the cracks. And so you got to create that culture that we're all about, and radar on, antenna up. Well, awesome. I want to appreciate everybody coming in today. As it relates to, let's get over that real quick, where we are with the Ritz. We'll be back again in December, and we'll send out, the invite. We'll talk a little more about culture, what Jeff talked about in the first session. That'll be our focus there. And there again, if you've got some challenges that you want the group to help you with, please let us know. We're gonna do that as well. So I appreciate everybody investing the time and effort. I wish you nothing but the best as you get traction and return on your investment as you implement the Ritz-Carlton ways into your practice. And as always, if you need anything, you can reach out to me via email. You can see my email address. I know Bill and John Daxon are also there, and they may not have the answer, but they can direct you to a resource that could on this. So thank you.
Thank you.